This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the Inland Empire, joined today by Carey Davis. He is the mayor of the city of San Bernardino. I continue to honor you and the 200,000 residents of San Bernardino. We recently remembered the horrors of December 2nd, when 14 people lost their lives in an act of terror. I feel like I lived through it, through you and other leaders in San Bernardino. Can we reflect on the night of remembrance on December 2nd, 2016, 1 year later?
Well, thank you. It's good to be back with you.
Please, please.
On December 2nd, 2016, we held a night of remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of that was to show our continuing support for the victims and the survivors. One of the speakers that we had was a survivor. Her name was Julie Paez. And she did an outstanding job. She was able to help us to relate to those victims. She gave a little bit of a description of each one of those 14 victims and helped to bring them and help us to understand a little bit more personally how the kind of people they were.
And we have to remember that Julie knew them because it was a department party, a county environmental affairs department party at the regional center, so they were all coworkers.
And for her to come forward and take on that challenge, we're just very grateful that she willingly took on that request.
Right. And I do have to say, San Bernardino, you know, from the beginning of this decade until December 2nd, 2015, very just tough times. The bankruptcy, crime spikes. And while December 2nd, 2015 was the most horrific day in recent memory, this past year, to my mind, in a lot of ways, the city has come together. And if there's any silver lining, it's hard to find one. I do sense a reemergence, kind of a rebirth.
I think you're right. We've seen that displayed in a number of events that we've held, where there's been a larger participation, more people attending. We had our Route 66, which almost doubled the number of cars. And so we've seen the community come together. We've had, as you know, a number of positive occurrences that we've been able to start to come out of bankruptcy.
Right, and we'll talk about that.
Near. But the December 2nd was an opportunity for us to come together as a community and to continue to show our support.
I want to talk about your Muslim neighbors, because even though San Bernardino and the entire Inland Empire is a very small Muslim community, no doubt the Muslims living in this region felt under siege after December 2nd. They came to the events, many did, and I've spoken with some, and they're feeling even more under siege in the wake of the election in 2016. The new president has spoken disparagingly. I'm not making comments about him, but he's spoken disparagingly about Muslims. Talk to us about your Muslim neighbors.
I had an opportunity at the December 2nd night of remembrance to speak with a couple of those who did share some of that concern that you're talking about. But we as a community have, as far as our leadership is concerned, we have reached out because we have tried to make them realize that we understand that this was not a Muslim, was not perpetrated by the Muslim religious community. It was perpetrated by extremists that were on the fringe. And so we, in the meeting that we held, the vigil that we held on December 3rd, 2015, right afterwards, as you know, we reached out to the Muslim community there, and we encouraged them to participate in that.
And they did.
And they did, as well as the night of remembrance. We asked them to participate, and they were very gracious, and it gave them an opportunity also to express their message, which was not hate and crime.
And you mentioned the bankruptcy, and it is somewhat telling that as we talk about a rebirth in the wake of December 2nd, San Bernardino is about to be reborn from its bankruptcy, if I can use that cliche, terribly enough. And talk to us about the emergence from bankruptcy.
Well, as you know, on December 6th, we had our what was our final confirmation hearing, and judge, jury, confirmed our plan, which is a 20-year plan. It was a plan that was put together over a number of years, as you know. It took a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifices. Many of the ingredients of it have already been implemented, but it will be probably in January when that order will then be put forth to the court, and then in March probably of 2017, we'll probably get an effective date to be outside of bankruptcy protection.
What does that mean?
What that essentially means is that during this time frame, after January 27th, when the confirmation order is issued and then approved by the court, many of those settlements and distributions, that'll be a time when a lot of that has to take place. And there'll also be the memorialization of some of the agreements that also have been put in place, but also now need to be
But
confirmed.
post January 27th, do certain powers now revert back to you and the council, or were powers really not stripped?
Yeah, the council always had the management authority, and so
Okay.
in bankruptcy, Chapter 9, the city still is the governing power. It's not a creditor.
Right, because in some other bankruptcies, Detroit, I believe, Detroit schools, there was a trustee that was very powerful.
In this case, the judge was the one that really maintained jurisdiction over it,
Okay.
with the aid of Judge Zive that helped in
Right.
some of the mediation. And so by maintaining that jurisdiction, which there were appeals, as you may
Right,
recall,
I do.
but they were overruled, and this judge jury has done an excellent job of being able to maintain the progress as well as maintain jurisdiction over the entire process. And so at the last hearing, she also indicated that if there were any subsequent disputes related to some of those issues, she would still retain jurisdiction over it, which helps the city in going forward so that we aren't looking at having to go outside of that to another court.
And another rebirth is your new charter, which was passed by your voters in November, correct?
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah, tell us about the new charter. How does that add to this new birthday?
So as you know, that started back shortly after I took office.
do.
We formed a charter review committee. The committee worked for over 2 years to put together and assemble a document that would really be more modernizing of our legislative government in San Bernardino. And they came to a very good compromise. It was adopted by the council. The council put it forward, and it was a 60-40% overwhelming.
So what does this do now? Streamlining elective officers? What else?
It does a couple of things, one of which is it moves our election cycle from an odd year to an even year. So now we're on the regular state or federal cycle of elections, which will increase the participation. It also changes the elected position of city attorney, city clerk, and city treasurer to appointed positions.
And we know that those positions caused, at least the incumbents in those positions, there was some controversy starting
Prior
to see.
incumbents.
Yeah, of course. And so why do you think your voters were so amenable to these changes?
Well, I think there were a number of things that were put in play. First of all, we had the police department, we had the fire department.
Right.
They were on board with it. And so there was not that controversy of having a lot of opposition. That was one of the main efforts. And there was a good campaign put forth.
His name is Carey Davis. He has been the mayor of San Bernardino during these very difficult years, but a rebirth is before us, and I congratulate you on all your successes. My name is Brad Pomerance. We are coming to you from the Inland Empire. You're watching us on Charter Local Edition. That's great.